Can you believe it? 65 hours. Almost to the end, y'all, for this week's 72-hour fast. And the question that everybody asks is fasting worth it? Is it powerful enough? Is it strong enough? Is it able to reverse my metabolic disease? Is it able to help me reverse my diabetes? Hey, we're going to be doing a review of fasting today. If you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to put their diabetes in remission, who want to get off of diabetes medications. In fact, who want to reverse. That's right, reverse their diabetes. And I'm glad that you are here, wherever you're joining us from, whether it's here on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitch, wherever you are. I'm glad that you are here and glad that you are in this space. We are moving into the last part of my fast for this week. I started my fast 3 days ago now, 2.5 days. At midnight, and so at midnight tonight it's going to be 72 hours. If you recall, earlier this week I started the fast on Sunday and I interrupted it right around 42, 43 hours because I had a dinner meeting, went out, hung out with some folks and ate, and then probably about 4 or 5 hours after breaking that fast, I started the fast again, and so now we are in the last part of the fasting. So we're going to do some chatting today about fasting and reviewing what's been going on with me. As you know how we do, I have my meters that we're going to be taking a look at right here. And then right down below is my report. That's my Dexcom clarity report that we'll take a look at in just a minute. Before we get there, we're going to do a quick check-in so you can see, so we can talk a little bit about what's been going on. And then, of course, if you've not done so yet, you want to make sure that you go back and you watch our show from Dwain Woode MD Live that airs on Mondays at 7 p.m. Central. So the show this past week, we started a kind of a series that we're going to be doing for the next several weeks on the pillars of reversing diabetes. That is decreasing your insulin, suppressing your appetite, and reducing your sugar, getting rid of sugar, essentially. All right, so make sure you do that so that you can catch up with us. And if you are new to the area, go ahead and put new in the comments because we'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music. And then if you do have questions, go ahead and put those in and make sure you put a Q in front of that question so we know that that is something that we need to get to. And then just some quick shout outs. I do see one of our community members, Steve. Hey man, what's up? He said it just completed a 28-hour fast. Yeah. Clap, hand clap, hand clap. 28-hour fast. His ketones were 2.2 and then he said his glucose was 110. So Steve is one of our community members. If you've not joined our community, you want to make sure you do that. We have a meetup, a community meetup that we do every month on the fourth Thursday at 7 p.m. Central. So make sure that you get out there and then you join us. So hey Steve, thanks for coming by, and just so excited that you are having good success and that you are 28 hours completing this week's fast. All right, and just so you know, I think Steve, don't say I think, but Steve does a ketogenic diet that he tries to maintain, and he's been having some great success. If you've been following us, you know that we've been walking through the different types of fasting, and then on Friday, we kind of do a review of fasting in general, and so that's what we're going to do here today. But before we get to that, I always do a check-in where I talk about how I'm feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally. So let's go ahead and let's do that right now. And so the phases of fasting, and we'll talk about more about that here in just a minute as we get into the discussion about fasting and reviewing of fasting. But the three components that most people struggle with are the physical manifestations of what they perceive is going on in fasting, the mental, and then the emotional. So fasting is really just not a physical thing. It's not just abstaining from food, but it also there's a mental and emotional component that goes with that. And so I do a check-in because these are the places where if we're not careful, we will have challenges. Okay, so physically, I am actually feeling pretty good. I'm not feeling weak. I'm not feeling lightheaded, dizzy, sweaty, not having any palpitations or those things that seem to be associated sometimes with fasting. I'm not feeling low, although I don't know if you guys saw on the screen a little while ago, my blood sugar has been 88, and we'll take a look at that also right after this check-in. But I'm not feeling any symptoms of low blood sugar. One of the things to remember is that in your fasting process, as the body transitions or as the body the glucose gets depleted, if you have done a good job of getting into the fast, then you don't feel a lot of those symptoms that sometimes people will feel. So I'm not feeling any of that right now. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Mentation, I'm feeling sharp. I'm not feeling sluggish. I was going to say dizzy or lightheaded, but that goes under physical. I'm not feeling sluggish or dull. I'm not feeling as though my thought process is cloudy. That also is something that sometimes people will get as they are transitioning into ketosis, or if they've not done a good job of preparing for the fast. Okay, and then emotionally, this has been kind of it started out with a pretty good week, and then in the middle of the week we had some things that went on, and so emotionally it's been a bit up and down. Right now I'm feeling pretty good. We are getting ready in the next couple of weeks for a camping trip that we're going to be going on, and so we've been preparing for that. Part of what was going on earlier this week was just kind of the thought process and getting ready for that. So remember, as we talked about fasting, and we'll make more points about this, stress can be a place where fasting can get disrupted. Okay, but right now, generally speaking, pretty good. It's been a little bit of a rocky week emotionally for me this week, but right now I'm excited to be here, excited this Friday, excited to be here in this space with you, and looking forward to some good things over the next couple of days. All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look and see what my continuous monitors are saying. As you know, I have two that I wear, and what you're seeing on the screen right now is the Freestyle Libre. And it's saying that my blood sugar is 85. You'll see a gap there at the bottom of the screen on the graph, and that was my my Libre ended, and I didn't put one on until later in the day. Got busy doing some other things, and so did not do that right away. My Dexcom is saying 89, and you'll see the graph for the Dexcom actually kind of mirrors what has been in previous days for the Libre, and so they're 89, 87, so pretty close to each other right now. What I want to do is hop over and take a look at my my two monitors that I have, and as you know, I have a Keto Mojo, which tells me blood sugar and also gives me ketones, and then here you'll see this is the Contour. So let's go ahead and grab a strip, and we'll go into the Contour. We'll get that in there, and then we'll see what it is. So this is the Contour meter. Let's get that strip in and get it turned on. And then we're going to start with the blood sugar strip for the Keto Mojo. Get that one in. And I do this because a lot of people want to know, well, what are the differences? And sometimes people say that they do see a big difference in their blood sugars based on the meter. Let me go ahead and grab one of my trusty little Lancets, and I'll grab two because sometimes, as you know, I don't do a good job of getting a good prick. And so this is a spring-loaded lancet. You basically break this purple part off, and they come in different colors. Mine happen to be white and purple. And then once I hit this spring that you see right here, then the lancing device or the lancet will come out, give me a poke. And let me go ahead and change to this view so you can actually see and perhaps hear. Boom, there you go. And I think I did a good job there because I felt that. All right, there you go. So that's a pretty good drop. Let's go ahead and get that one started, and another drop. And so I tend to use the same finger because I've used that for so long that it sometimes doesn't hurt anymore. All right, so 70 for the contour, 71 for the Keto Mojo. And then if you remember on our freestyle, it was 86 and then 88 for the Dexcom. All right, and so monitors can be and are allowed to be about 20% different in terms of their numbers, and that's still considered within the target or within range of each other. So if you have a blood sugar of 100, if we know your blood sugar is 100 and you check it with a meter and it's anywhere from 80 to 120, then those are still considered to be within the range. All right, so let's go ahead and now I'm going to get a test strip for the ketones for the Keto Mojo. Let's go ahead and get that in here. And get that started. All right, and of course, as I always do, well, wait a minute, that didn't start. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to do another lancet. All right, there we go. See, I talked a little longer, and the blood, I think, just coagulated. All right, so there we are. See, well, I may have to just get another strip. Let's grab one. And so this is, let's go ahead and show you this. Let's see where it is. So here's my box with all of the strips. And this is how it comes, right? And I just get one of these out, tear that off. And get that in here. And let's make sure we still have a good drop, and I think, all right, so 3 times the charm, everybody. So see, that's how quickly blood can coagulate and stop bleeding. So let's go ahead and let's pop that. There we go. All right. So that should be, hopefully that's good enough. Let's get a little bit more just to be sure. All right, here we go. All right, so that one got started. There we go. 3 times the charm. All right. All right, so while that's running, let's talk a little bit. So when we talk about the reversal of diabetes, right? The pillars, and you recall when we talk about the pillars are 3. So decrease insulin, suppress appetite, and reduce sugar. And in this space, what we are talking about is the prototypic, right? The prototypic metabolic disease, that is diabetes. But the same things that work for the prototypic metabolic disease will also work for those other diseases that everyone talks about. And so as you're sitting out there and you're watching, you may be thinking, wait a minute, I'm not diabetic. He's just talking to diabetics. And in fact, all of the metabolic diseases, right? Because diabetes is the prototypic one, will respond to the treatment and to the regimen and to the plan, right? So high blood pressure, high cholesterol, coronary artery disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, polycystic ovarian syndrome, obesity, and being overweight. And all of those things will improve with the treatment and with the plan that we're calling New Year, New You. Okay? So just because you're not diabetic doesn't mean that this is not for you. In fact, it is very much for you. There are right now over 1 billion people on the planet with diabetes or pre-diabetes. And so the numbers are continuing to grow, and we've got to do something different. And one of the tools that we are using in this space is the tool of fasting. Now, we've learned several tools over the course of the time that we've been together. And let's see, do I have? Yeah, here we go. Let's take a look at this one. So several tools that we've used, the 5 whys. Right? So why is what's your reason for doing what you're doing? We'll talk more about that later. The HEAT model, fasting, emotional intelligence, medication management. So all of those are tools that we've discussed, and among others, to help to put our diabetes in remission. And one of the most powerful is this idea of fasting. And so let's hop over and let's talk a little bit about fasting and why it is such an amazing process, an amazing thing that that we are using. And so fasting is, let's pop over to this one, there we go. So fasting is a tool because it hits all of the things we just talked about, right? So we talked about suppressing insulin, reducing sugar. We talked about decreasing insulin, suppressing the appetite, reducing sugar. So all of those things are hit by fasting, because when you fast, you're not putting anything in. You're not putting any. And in our case, we're doing a complete fast except for water, and we're doing a total calorie fast. Really, is the way we should probably say that. So we're doing a calorie fast. So the only thing that we're taking in are those things that are for hydration. So there's no calories that we're putting in. And so when we fast, the blood sugar has to go down. When the blood sugar goes down, insulin goes down. So number one, by fasting, we suppress insulin because insulin is responding to sugar. As sugar goes down, as glucose gets lower, then the insulin goes down as well. So suppressing or decreasing sugar, pillar number one. Because we're not putting anything in, we're not getting those spikes in blood sugar. Because we're not getting spikes in blood sugar, insulin goes down, and insulin, which stimulates the appetite, does not do that anymore. And so our hunger hormones are suppressed because we're fasting. So we suppress the appetite. And just by virtue of not taking anything in, we are automatically reducing glucose, reducing sugar. So fasting in its in the way that we're doing it in terms of being a total calorie fast hits all the pillars of reversing diabetes. Right, so all those pillars are hit by fasting. So when I talk about fasting, I want to now go through the process of fasting. And in this process, I break it up into several components. And you know, if you've watched this before, that there are several phases that I go through with fasting, and they are preparing for the fast, the time during the fast, and then breaking the fast. Those are the components, right? So preparing for the fast, the time going through the fast, and that is broken up further into different categories, and then of course breaking the fast. So as we prepare for the fast, it's important to know that how you prepare is just as essential as how you go through the fast, and it's just as important as how you end the fast. Because if you don't do one of those components well, then it can derail the entire process. Okay? So in terms of going through the fast or preparing for the fast, there are 4 things that I normally talk about. I'm going to add a couple of things here But I'm going to go through the 4 and then we'll come back and add a couple more. But the very first thing that I want you to be aware of is as you go through the fast, you want to make sure that you are well rested. Well rested. If you recall, when I did my check-in, I talked about how I was feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally. And this is where this comes into play, because fasting is not simply a physical thing. It's not simply just abstaining from food, but it is a physical, mental, and emotional component, or has physical, mental, and emotional components. And so if you're not well rested, then it becomes difficult to go through the fast, because several of the mental and emotional things that come out in fasting can derail you. What does that mean? Well, a lot of us use food as a buffer. And what's a buffer? A buffer is a coping mechanism that is used, well, let me say, is an abnormal coping mechanism. That's what a buffer is. It is the thing that we do because we need to do something to either avoid or not feel what we want, what's going on, right? So basically it is something that we do that puts a wall, if you will, between us and the things that are out there that we are trying not to deal with. So stresses on the job, stresses in our environment in terms of interpersonal relationship, maybe health challenges, maybe disappointment or depression or anxiety or any of those things, right? We often use food as a buffer in order to avoid that or to deal with that. And so when we're fasting, during the process of fasting, you are now facing that thing without the buffer. And so you've got to find a different way of dealing with it. And sometimes if we're not rested, sometimes if you're not rested, sometimes you don't make the best decisions, or it's easier to do or get into things that you said you weren't going to do. And so being well rested helps to prepare us to be successful through the fast, right? Because remember, it's not just physical, it's also mental, and it's also emotional. If you remember our heat model, the heat model says that there are, the reason we eat are because of habits, because of emotions, there it is, because of access, and because of taste. And so if we're not careful, the heat model predicts that we can run into trouble because of those emotions. And once again, because we're tired, the emotions tend to have a bigger component in our thought, in our lives, and will push us in a direction that we don't want to go. So number one, we want to make sure that you are rested. Number two, we want to make sure that you are hydrated. Right? Make sure that you are hydrated, because if you're not hydrated, that itself can also cause issues, because you can have problems with blood pressure. You can have issues feeling lightheaded, dizzy, sweaty. You can have palpitations, okay, if you're not hydrated, as the body is trying to circulate enough blood to carry enough oxygen to keep you doing the things that you need to do. So if we're not hydrated, that poses issues for us as well. So making sure that you're hydrated as you move into or get ready for the fast, very, very important. So that's number two. Number three is making sure that during your eating time, that you are doing a good job of eating nutrient-dense foods. Not calorie-dense, but nutrient-dense. And we did a show where we talked about calories and so forth. But nutrient-dense foods are those foods that are full of fiber, that have the appropriate vitamins and minerals and so forth. A variety of foods that have a variety of minerals and vitamins and fluid, right? That's hydration, and fiber. Often during our eating period, if we're not doing a good job of making sure that the food is nutrient dense, then now when we get into the fasting, then we run into trouble there. Okay, so making sure that you're doing that. And then I mentioned making sure that you are not going into or coming out of a stressful situation, because stress simulates, well, that shouldn't simulate, it stimulates cortisol. When cortisol comes out, then epinephrine, also one of the stress hormones, comes out. And so cortisol's job is to find sugar, energy, and epinephrine's job is to help your body get ready to use it, right? So they are the yin and yang of stress. So one goes and finds the energy, and then the other says, hey, now we have the energy, let's go ahead and let's use it. Okay? So you want to make sure that you are doing a good job of making sure that you're doing a good job of getting hydrated, resting, eat nutrient dense, and then making sure that you're hydrated. Okay? And then you're not in stress. All right. And then now that we've prepared for the fast, right? And I mentioned that I was going to do some additional things. So in preparing for the fast, one of the things is to determine what the goal of the fast is, right? Is it a blood pressure issue? Is it a diabetes? Is it a weight goal? What is the goal that you have for the fast? So you want to make sure that you're doing that so that as you're getting into the fast and going through the fast, or even if you begin having challenges in the fast, then you know where I'm heading. I know what my goal is. And I can actually, during the fast, see that. You can track your blood sugars. And you guys know, as I do here on the show, I have several ways of monitoring my blood sugar. One of them is with the continuous monitors that I have, right? So you make sure that you can do that. And then not only do you want to set what your goals are, but you want to pick the particular type of fast that works best for you. Often people don't succeed, not because the fasting doesn't work, but they don't succeed because they've chosen a fast or a fasting method or a fasting schedule, fasting regimen that doesn't fit into their day or their life or their environment or their family. So you want to make sure that you're picking the right one, okay? All right, so that's preparing for the fast. And then as we get through the fast, as you know, we break the fast up into usually 24-hour periods. Today we're going to kind of chunk that or get a little smaller chunks as we move through that. We're going to take a look at what that looks like the first 6 hours and then moving into the rest of the fast. So the first 6 hours, and give me a second, let me do one thing here. So the first 6 hours of the fast is really called the postprandial period, right? So it is the time when the body is now absorbing, it's digesting the food that we have, the food that we've eaten. We've gone for a period of time without taking in any additional food, and so the body is now breaking that down, absorbing it, and insulin levels are spiking because there's probably carbs in the things you eat. It's very difficult to find something that's fully protein in nature. So usually there's some carb associated with it, and even if we're eating something that has a lot of fat in it, right? So remember the macronutrients are carbs, fat, and protein. We often pair that with some carbohydrates. So insulin levels are going up, energy levels are pretty high, glucose levels are high if there are carbs there, and the processing that's going on is the digestion and absorption of those nutrients. Blood glucose level begins to peak, then slowly drops. And then energy levels are high as the body uses the glucose from the last meal. So the first 6 hours, 0 to 6 hours. And then the early fasting state. The next 6 to 12 hours. And during this phase, insulin levels are decreasing because you're not putting anything else in. Glucagon levels are increasing because remember, insulin and glucagon are opposite. So when insulin is high, glucagon is low, and when insulin is low, glucagon is high. Corresponding to that, blood sugars are high, then insulin is high. When blood sugars go down, insulin goes down, and glucagon comes up. Okay, so that's the kind of the signaling that goes on. And this signals the liver that it needs to start releasing stored glucose. And that is the glycogen that's stored there. And that's called glycogenolysis. That's the breaking down of the glycogen in the liver that then converts it to glucose. And this is how it helps maintain blood sugars. So people will say to me often, I haven't eaten anything for 12 hours. And I'll say, okay. And what they mean to say is that I haven't eaten anything for 12 hours, and yet my blood sugars are still elevated, or the blood sugars have not gone down, or some form of that comment. And as you see, it is possible to not eat anything for a while and still have those blood sugars not go down. And we'll take a look again here at my blood sugars, because you've seen that I've been now fasting for 65 hours. And when we looked at mine, the meters said it ranged anywhere from 70, I think, to 80, 89, I think was the highest. So that is a possibility. And so this process of absorption, right, and then the initial fasting stages, you still have glucose that is in the body. It's stored as glycogen, and then the body's breaking it down now. And then energy levels begin to fluctuate. And so as the body is now using up the glycogen that's in the liver, right, then the blood sugars or the energy levels can begin to fluctuate as the body is now getting ready to transition from burning sugar into actually burning ketones. And then 12 to 18 hours, we're transitioning to using fat. Glucose levels continue to drop, and this prompts the increase of fatty acid release from fat stores. So because the glucose levels are going down, the body now has to go and find energy somewhere else. And this is the beauty, this is the part right here, right? So as the body's doing that and it's getting those fatty acids that are coming out of the fat cells, what do you think is happening? Yeah, we're burning fat. Right? And in that process, we are now beginning to have some weight loss. And so one important point that I want to make here is that all fasting works. Now, there are fasts that give you a bigger impact in your metabolism, but just because you're not doing a 72 or 48 or even 36 or 24-hour fast doesn't mean that you're not getting some benefit from the fasting process. Because as you see, even there, as the body is going through this 12 to 18 hours, right, as we get closer to that 18 hours, we are now starting to say, the body is saying, hey, I need some energy from somewhere else, right, because the glycogen is starting to go away. And so we're now getting free fatty acids that are coming out of those fat cells, and that equates to weight loss. So the liver starts gluconeogenesis, right? So it's gluconeogenesis from non-carbohydrate sources. So in other words, the glycogen is no longer there, so it can't use that. So it has to now find something else, whether it's protein or fat, because those are the only other two macronutrients that we have. In this process, a lot of people are concerned about the protein loss, because I just said that it has to find another source, either protein or fat. But remember, as you're losing fat, as you are losing weight, anytime you lose weight, you're going to lose some protein, right? That's a given. It can't be avoided. Now, you can lose less or more protein depending on some other things, but you're going to lose some protein. And the goal is to lose a lot more fat than you do protein. And so the ratio, right, is very important. So if you are 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 20 pounds overweight, and you lose weight, you are going to lose some protein. What we want to do is we want to minimize the amount of protein that we lose relative to fat. Okay, so that's the important part. But in this process, in this transition, in this phase, 12 to 18 hours, the body is now starting to look at other non-carbohydrate sources to begin converting those to glucose. And then the energy levels may feel low. There may be a dip. It's kind of like that hybrid car. as the car runs out of gas, it's now switching over to the battery. And in fasting, as the body runs out of glucose, runs out of glycogen, it's now switching over to burning ketones, and there may be a slight dip, or people will feel that as a slight dip in energy. And then so 18 to 24 hours, so now we are in ketosis. So ketosis has begun, right? So glycogen stores are nearly depleted, and this leads to increased ketones as the liver metabolizes fat into ketones. So it's burning the fat and it's converting it into ketones at this point. Autophagy begins. Remember, that's the cellular cleanup process that the body goes through in repair. It goes out and it finds broken, unused, damaged cells, and it begins converting those and recycling them and making them into newer components. It's kind of like when you recycle at your house and they come and they pick up the recycling. They send some of the like newspapers, cardboard boxes, and so forth, and they show back up as some other product. Same thing for the aluminum and whatever else that you're putting in the recycling. So those recycled components show back up as different, better, stronger, maybe sometimes the same thing, but they're showing up as new components. And same thing here. The body, through the process of autophagy, goes out and finds those broken, damaged, unused cells and structures and proteins, and it recycles them and it makes other structures. This is the great place where we talk about the benefit to other disease processes like neurodegenerative diseases, right? That's brain. That is people who have Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, or people who suffer from ALL, so multiple sclerosis, right? Also, a lot of people who have neuropathy will sometimes say that, hey, my neuropathy is improving because the body is cleaning up, it's manufacturing, it's repairing itself during this process. So autophagy, an amazing process that happens and is enhanced, it's supercharged, it is boosted by fasting. It's a wonderful thing that you want to do. Let's see, there was another point I wanted to make here. So ketones. Oh, so let's go back and let's ask the question and let's answer it. You're probably asking yourself right now, I can hear it, I can hear it. And you're saying, wait a minute, Dr. Woode, you've been fasting for, 60-something hours now, 65, 66 hours. Why is your blood sugar still 89? And my blood sugar is still 89 because my body still has the ability to convert other components to sugar. So that I told you that the fat cells are releasing free fatty acids, or they're releasing fat, or they're burning fat. Well, the fat is in the form of what's called a triglyceride. So triglyceride is 3 fatty acids attached to a backbone of glycerol. And so the free fatty acids get turned into ketones, but the glycerol, glycogen, glucose, right, gets turned into sugar. And so the body has the ability to maintain blood sugars even though I'm fasting. And the body gets better and better and better at that process over time. When I first started fasting, right? When I first started fasting, my body was not totally in tune. And so you may find also that as you're fasting, it takes you a little longer to get into ketosis, or, well, at the beginning, you're taking a while, but after a while, you stop eating and you start fasting, and the body switches into ketosis like almost immediately. Well, not immediately, but sooner than it used to. So that's a very good point that I wanted to make. People will say, hey, why are your blood sugars not lower than they currently are? And that's one of the reasons. And you want to. I'm excited actually when I see my blood sugars of 88, 89, because sometimes it'll dip down, right, in those first 12, 18 hours, and then it'll come back up. And I know it's coming back up because my body is burning fat. And in order to burn fat, it has to get those triglycerides, and the glycerol shows up, and my blood sugar goes back up, right? So I love when I see that, all right? All right, let's see, what else? So that's the point. That's one point that I did want to make as we talked about blood sugars. All right. So ketosis begins 18 to 24 hours, and then 24 to 36 hours. Then my body is now in full ketosis. My body is fat adapted, so that significant increases in ketones are there. Decreased reliance on gluconeogenesis. So glycogen is gone out of the liver, and the body is fully now switched over and say, hey, this is my source right now. And the process here is fat oxidation increases, right? So that process of breaking the fat down, and the energy levels stabilize because now we have a steady source of ketones. So when the blood sugar was there, we had a steady source of energy, and then we had a little dip. And then now, as ketones are there, we have a steady source of energy. And some people will say that hunger goes away. Now, I'll tell you, for me, hunger goes away actually in those first, I don't know, six hours maybe. Because after that first 6 hours, I'm not hungry. Now, I tend to start my fasts later in the day. Actually, I tend to start my fast, as you see, way late in the day. And I do that particularly because I want to, when I wake up in the morning, I want part of my fasting to have been done. If I'm doing a 24-hour fast, I want 8, 9, 10 hours gone when I wake up in the morning. Okay, so I use the nighttime as a way of getting through some of the fasting. And if you recall our last show, we talked about eating according to your circadian rhythm. And that's a great way to do that because you're aligning your fasting with times when the body's resting, and all the benefits that come from resting during circadian rhythm while you're sleeping come with that as well. Okay. So the hunger goes away, and people begin to feel that they are clearer in their mentation, clearer in their thought process, right? And of course I hopped over. We're going to talk about breaking the fast here in just a minute, but that's the fasting process. So preparing for the fast, getting through the fast, that's what happens during the fast, and of course breaking the fast. Now, during the fast, some of the same things that we talked about during preparation are also there. So you want to make sure that you are rested, that you are maintaining hydration, right? Got my trusty little cup here. That you are not going into a stressful situation, okay? Those are very, very good ones. And then always remembering the why. Why am I doing this? What are my goals? Why did I come into this? Because those will help you get through sometimes some of those difficult moments during the fast. And we'll talk here in a little bit about the triggers, right? So our heat model of that. All right. And then let's go through and let's talk about breaking the fast. So breaking the fast just as important because you can undo during the breaking of the fast some of the things that you did during the fast. Okay, and so we'll talk about that. So during the fast, some important things you want to remember. Number one, you want to monitor blood sugars. Here we're talking about diabetics who are putting their diabetes in remission, who are reversing their diabetes. But for everyone, I actually recommend, even if you're not diabetic, if you are working on metabolic diseases, I recommend that you monitor your blood sugar. Get a meter, right? Probably the least expensive one on the market is at Walmart. You don't need a prescription. One of the companies is coming out here soon with a continuous monitor that's over the counter, right? And during the process of fasting and improving metabolic disease, you want to know, remember the pillars, right? Decrease insulin, suppress appetite, and reduce sugar. You want to know what is going on in your body as a result of the things you're eating. And the best way to do that is, of course, to monitor to see what those blood sugars are. Because if you see a high blood sugar, guess what? The insulin is spiking. Yep. and an important point about insulin spiking is that anything that you eat at the point when insulin is spiked will make you put on weight. So it doesn't matter if you eat ice cream, cookies, candy, cake, or broccoli. Because the insulin spiked, then the weight's coming back on, right? So just remember that. So monitor blood sugars. Number two, portion control. Make sure that you're eating appropriately. Sometimes after a fast, particularly if you've been thinking about breaking the fast. You've been planning what you're going to eat. You've been anticipating the taste. You've been perseverating over the food, right? You've been planting a garden. Wink, wink. Right? So sometimes we think about that. And so when we come out of the fast, then we end up eating more, right? So you want to make sure your portion control is adequate. And then eat slowly. This goes along with the portion, because sometimes we feel, oh my goodness, I haven't eaten for 4 days, 3 days, whatever number of days, a number of hours even. And so we kind of push it in, and that can cause us some issues. And then avoid sugary processed foods. As soon as you eat something sugary, the blood sugar is going to spike. When the blood sugar spikes, insulin comes out. Insulin comes out, you get hungry, and then it's sometimes downhill from there. We've had people who in our community say, hey, I broke my fast by eating pizza, broke my fast by eating Chinese food, broke my fast by eating ice cream or candy or cookie or cake, right? I broke my fast 1 week by eating anniversary cake. That was 4 weeks ago, roughly, right? And so that can be a big deal. So make sure that you are avoiding sugary and processed foods. And then make sure you're hydrated, right? So just as hydration is important for preparing for the fast, for getting through the fast, it is also important for breaking the fast. Make sure you're hydrated. You can use water, coconut water, unsweetened herbal teas are very good for that as well. And then make sure that you're having some good protein in the food that you're eating, right? Because having protein will help to satiate you, will help you feel less hungry. It won't cause a big spike in your blood sugar as carbs will, okay? And if you eat protein, you can also maintain ketosis longer. I think I mentioned Steve earlier, and so protein is a big component of the ketogenic diet. So eggs, chicken or turkey, right? Talking about those lean protein. Tofu or tempeh for those of you who are vegetarian and or vegan, right? So those are options as well. And then making sure you're having some healthy fats, because the fats will blunt the rise in blood sugar. So if you eat fat along with carbs, then you don't get as big an absorption of the glucose or the carbohydrates that are there. So avocados, nuts, nuts. Yeah, and seeds, right? So you guys know nuts are my thing. That's my, I can't break the fast with nuts, because then it's on, and I can't stop. Okay, I can't stop. And then, you can use broths as well to break the fast. And I think I mentioned last week that I'm going to go back to doing broths. We have a community member out there who's making her own broth, and so she had me all hungry when we were doing our community check-in the other night. But vegetable broth, for those of you who are vegan, vegetarian, you can use vegetable broth. And of course, bone broth you can use. And really any kind of broth that doesn't have a lot of sugar, right? Sometimes you can go to the grocery store and you buy a broth, and it is full of all kinds of carbohydrates. You can make it yourself. As I mentioned, somebody in our community was doing that. You can make it yourself, and then you are sure what is in it, and you can put what you want it. Let me see if I can pull up my Yuka app. We've not looked at that in a while, but on my Yuka app, I have a broth that I used. Let's see if I can pull that. Actually, let me hop over there so you can actually see what I'm doing. So this is my Yuka app, and you'll see a list of all the things that I've scanned. And what I'm looking for is one of the broths that I use. Actually, it was very early on, so let me go back. Oh yeah, here's so organic beef broth. Organic beef broth. This is specific, and once again, no allegiance to the brand. It just happened to be one that I saw, and it has 1 gram of sugar, so low sugar, right? And then you'll see it gives you a rating, by the way. So when you use the Yuka app, it'll give you a rating on the food. And so this one says that this bone broth, beef bone broth, is 94 out of 100. So excellent. And then another one that I looked at, I thought I had another one on here, But soups are another way to go. Here's mushroom bisque soup, and this one has 1 gram of sugar. All right, so that would be another way to go. And then creamy mushroom. That's the one we just looked at. Here's another. This is another brand. This is the Kettle and Fire. This is beef bone broth. Once again, this has 0 grams of sugar. So if you're trying to maintain, then these are all options that you can use. All right. So let's see. So we're talking about broth, right? So bone broth to break the fast. Those are very important. And then some just kind of general considerations. When you break the fast, choose foods that help you maintain stable blood sugars while offering good nutrition, right? Make sure you're doing that. And you want to focus on low glycemic index. Remember, glycemic index low would be considered 50 or less, lean protein, healthy fats, and then make sure that you are remaining hydrated, right? So very, very important as you are breaking the fast. All right, so let's hop over. I see some folks there in talking, and let's see. Steve says, I usually do a 24-hour fast, but I pushed to 28 today. Yay, Steve, good for you. Jennifer said, howdy all. Howdy, Steve. Congratulations on the fast. Yes, definitely. That's from Jennifer. And then Teresa says, hey, doctor and everyone. Howdy, Teresa. Steve says, hello, ladies, and hi, Steve. All right. And so, with a nod to one of our community members, it is 53 minutes into the show, and I'm excited to say that we are on our way to discussing some things and then ending here in just a few minutes. I'm excited about that. Hey, man, I'm can you guys tell that I have fun when I'm here? I know. So I play the episodes in my office, and people come in, and when I'm in the room with them, they say, you just look like you have a good time on the show. I say, I do. I just have a good time because I love the space that I'm in. I love the people. I love the community. And the subject matter is very so important. So important to us. Okay, so let's do this. And of course, as soon as I said that, I forgot that I did not do a couple of things. So one, I want to make sure that we look at my Keto Mojo. So let me go ahead and pull the Keto Mojo app up. Boom. And then let's go ahead and get this strip out because we want to see what my ketones are. And that's turned on. And then let's get it syncing. So it says syncing in progress. And so blood sugars are 70. Blood sugar was 71, and then my ketones 1.2. So remember, when we talk about ketones that are less than 0.5 are considered normal. 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 considered therapeutic ketosis. And so right now I am 1.2, and I think Steve, did you say 2.7 or 2.2? Let's see. Let's go back. Yeah. So Steve said he was 2.2. Okay. So he's above the nutritional now into the therapeutic ketosis. And for, if you're out there, right, I'm talking specifically for people who are type 2, who are putting the diabetes in remission. But for those of you who are not diabetic, let's talk first to the patient who is type 1. Often people say that type 1 diabetics can't fast. That is not true. They have to be more careful, and they probably should do, well, not probably, they should do it under supervision, right? And so when we talk about ketones, if we're talking about being in ketosis for a type 1 diabetic, their ketones have to be above 0.5 or 0.5 or above, right? Because they're in ketosis, but we don't want them drifting up into the 8, 9 or 0.9, 10 or 1.2 and so forth, and definitely not above 1.5. So we want to keep them in a very therapeutic range. And so for everybody else, right, non-type 1s, right, if we are above a 0.5 or above, that is actually a decent place to be. So if you're 0.5 and you stay at 0.5, that's okay. If you're going up to 1.2, 1.5, that's okay as well. We just want to make sure that you are staying safe. Okay, so that's what the blood sugars are. And then everybody here, I want to always remind you that you have potential. You have unlimited potential at your fingertips. You have the ability to create the life you want. You have the ability to be healthy metabolically. You have the ability, you have access to those things. You have access, and we do that here on the show through our Triple E model for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate with the shows, the blogs, the podcasts that we do. We encourage, we empower with the tools that we learn, the fasting that we're doing right now, the emotional intelligence, the 5 whys, all the things that we do. All of those are tools that we're learning that help you to put to practice the things that we're doing under education. And then, of course, we encourage with the community that we're building, the community that you are a part of. And so my call to action to you is always, when you show up, join the challenges. Hey, be a part of it. Every month we have a challenge. Go back and look at our shows and join the challenge. Don't let them just be things that you see on the shelf that then kind of go away, that you maintain and it just here and it's gone. And then claim your seat. Say, I'm here. Tell your story. Let us know what's going on. That way we can support you. We can rally around you. Know that we're not by ourselves, and know that if you can do it, we can do it as well. And then invite someone to the show. Invite them to the community. Send them a link. Say, hey, let's go watch this together. This is some amazing things that's going on, and I want to make sure that we are doing it together. You can be a voice for change in your community. There are over 1 billion people right now on the planet who are diabetic or pre-diabetic, and you can be a voice for making a difference. As always, I encourage you to join us for our This Week in Review on Sunday morning, which airs at 6 o'clock. Make sure you get there, and to be with us again next week when we go live on Dwain Woode, MD. As always, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new year, new you. We'll see you Sunday morning for This Week in Review, and then Monday for Dwain Woode, MD Live. Good night. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.